back to my channel. Welcome, Brady fans. Today we're reacting to someone ranking all 8 states and territories in Australia from worst to best, from here to there. That is the channel's name. Really cool name. And now let's get into the video.
Large empty swaths of extremely hot desert and want to increase your risk of skin cancer? Well, then you might be a feral. In which case, you're likely already in Australia. And if you're not,
I'm in Australia.
With gorgeous beaches, incredible cities, great healthcare and education, and some of the most unique ecosystems and wildlife not found anywhere else on Earth, the land down under is one of the...
By the way, those little masks always smell, and there's some in a place called Rottnest Island, near to where I live.
Countries to live in. But while this giant island continent country, Conninountry, is around the same size as the contiguous United States, it has just 1/13 the population. And over half of the 25.9 million Australians reside in just 3 cities. But doesn't Australia have like 6 states and 2
And not to mention, Australia in the cities has the most urban cities in the world. By that I mean, like, you don't really see a farm in the middle of the city. It's mostly in the big cities. It's mostly just houses. Like, there's not that much trees in really big cities, but in big cities there's still some trees.
Territories? Why don't people spread out more? Well, Mr. Camel, because most of the country gets so hot that you'll end up looking like this guy if you spend 5 minutes outside. So, unless you actually are one of the 1 million feral camels they call the outback home, you'll probably want to stick with 85% of Australians who live within 50 kilometers of the coast. Doesn't, like, every state touch the ocean, though? How do I know which is best? Find out as we rank all 8 Australian states and territories from worst to best. And let's hit 5,000 likes for a video on the 10 best cities in Australia. Number 8. Actually, we're going to start off with a quick honorable mention. The external territories. That's right, Norfolk Island, Christmas Island, the Cocos Islands, and a few other islands that no one lives on. I didn't forget about you. Now, don't get me wrong. These aren't terrible places to live and are breathtaking with plenty of endemic species and extravagant landscapes. Christmas Island's nickname is actually Australia's Galapagos due to its unique red crabs, booby birds, flying foxes, and hundreds of other animals and fauna.
Flying foxes are not actually flying foxes. They're actually some things that actually look like foxes. I've seen them in the zoo, but they're not flying foxes. There's some kind of crabby fish, some like little crabby fish thing. If you play Fortnite, they kind of look like fish stick, like they actually do.
Surrounding coral reef. And the largest and most inhabitable of these islands, Norfolk Island, is home to the tallest pine trees in the world, beautiful beaches and rolling pastures, and some of the rarest birds. If you don't mind a very slow-paced lifestyle with few modern conveniences, and most things being more expensive as they have to be shipped in, the external territories might seem like paradise. But considering they all have a
in the Pacific Islands, probably like Asia, like down Indonesia, everything's like deported from Australia, exported, because that's where everything comes from. Like, Papua New Guinea doesn't have freshly made tomatoes and like steak and ramen. It's got to get imported from like Japan, Australia, Thailand, Indonesia.
5,000, the extremely isolated lifestyle isn't for most. Actual number 8, Northern Territory. If you're
the Northern Territory, I mean, I know every state, and to be honest with you, I kind of agree, because, so, half of it, like, basically all of it's desert. The capital city, Darwin, is basically just a suburb in where I live. It's literally like it's like a tiny, tiny villagey town, and there's nothing in it. And basically the other parts are just desert. Like, I don't recommend living. It's not a good place to live, so I would rank it number 8 as well.
looking to rake in the dough and don't mind the lack of infrastructure or seclusion from the rest of the country, the Northern Territory might be for you. The median household income is the third highest of any state or territory at $115 grand, and the median home value is the lowest at just $515 grand. Plus, there's no property tax. But remember how I said a lot of Australia is uninhabitable? Well, a huge chunk of the most uninhabitable land is here. The southern half of the territory has a climate similar to the Sahara Desert, and while Darwin and the coast is a bit more livable with tons of rainfall during the wet season, it also gets very hot and humid.
So, basically Darwin, in the summers, it's like Mr. Cyclone land. There's just cyclones everywhere, you can't go outside on the beach. And into winters, because it's tropical, it's basically just like super hot, like 47 degrees Celsius. And then like, you can only stay at home, there's really warnings saying you can't go outside, so I don't recommend. It's basically Hurricane Milton times 700 every day.
Cyclones and extreme flooding. So despite accounting for 17.5% of the country's landmass, less than 250,000 residents, or 1% of Australia, actually lives in the NT. And it's the only state or territory which had a net population decrease over the past year. But the lack of people is also why many love living here. From Litchfield and Kakadu to Uluru and Watarka National Parks, the territory is home to so much stunning wide-open wilderness that
It's probably the most state with the natural beauties, but the most with one of the like unhappy places in the state. So I don't recommend, but it is really beautiful. If you like beautiful places that have Hurricane Milton every day, I guess you can go there.
Experience all to yourself. Although you might not want to be too alone, because not only does the Northern Territory have the most saltwater crocodiles in Australia, it's also by far the most dangerous state or territory.
And so this state has the highest crime rate, so if you go there you'll get pickpocketed like 7 billion times, and not to mention, you can't swim in nearly half of the beaches there are not swimmable because there's too much crocodile and dangerous eels trying to get you. So, like there's a Palm Beach, and like any other state, like Bondi Beach is a popular beach, and it doesn't have any dangerous animals. So I recommend Bondi than this.
The violent crime rate, 323%.
And Darwin's probably the size of Bondi, the suburb.
Above the national average. Number 7, South Australia. While the Northern Territory is home...
South Australia is probably my mini WA where I live. And Adelaide's probably just the same thing as Perth, but more boring. But, where I live. But I don't live in SA, I live in WA. And South Australia is basically just a normal state. It's basically really rainy in the capital city Adelaide, near Melbourne, which is one of the rainiest places on earth, and that's pretty much all I have to say for South Australia.
Some of the highest wages in the nation, South Australia has the second lowest median household income at just $98,500 and the highest unemployment rate at 4.4%. But if you're someone who prefers the simple life and community over vibrancy and wealth, the Festival State is a wonderful place to settle down. It's home to so many charming suburbs and beach towns, over 5,000 kilometers of pristine coastline, the best wine in the country, and hardly any crime. And with below average fuel, grocery, and utility costs, and a median home value of just $565 grand, South Australia is actually the cheapest state. And Adelaide is the cheapest capital. Sure, Adelaide's also likely the most boring city with over 1 million residents, and a bit behind the times with supermarkets still closing at 5 p.m. on weekends, for example, but that's also by design. Adelaiders love that their home offers all of the amenities of a city, with great food, museums, parks, festivals, and a few unique attractions like the Adelaide Central Market, while still maintaining its small-town charm with hardly any traffic and where everyone knows everyone. Not to mention, it's easy to navigate with no toll roads and a beautiful beach or waterfall hike being...
And the part it said no traffic, I mean, basically Australia has no traffic, but in populated places like Sydney, there is traffic. And when like 4 o'clock when people are getting back to work, there are a lot of traffic and accidents.
Just a 20-minute drive from the city centre. Number 6, Queensland. Queensland is Australia's most popular...
So Queensland, I kind of think it should be like second, because it is like, so Brisbane's basically like my city, Perth, like the same thing. There's really good beaches, and really good beaches down, not to mention the Gold Coast, which is a really good city and has the tallest building in Australia, in Queensland, basically has this suburb called like Palm that is floating on the water. It's an island. There's this little bridge to get to it, and it's like, it's not like that, like the San Francisco Bridge. What was it? I forgot. Like the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's not a San Francisco though. The Golden Gate Bridge, it's not like that. It's just a little street floating through the water. That's where, if that's where you live, you basically you're isolated. And it's in the middle of the city, so it's really cool.
Destination, and for good reason. It's incredibly safe, has the most national parks, and with scenery as diverse as the Great Barrier Reef, Daintree Rainforest, Porcupine Gorge, and Lamington, Girrawing, Durangon, under a...
And if you want to visit the Great Barrier Reef, make it quick because global warming is causing heating to the corals and maybe extinction from some of the animals there. But more sharks and more whales, humpback whales are coming, so make it quick before it disappears.
Blackdown tablelands and Great Sandy National Parks, not to mention the only Everglades ecosystem outside of Florida. It's debatably the most beautiful state. And if you prefer a more chill vacation, the Sunshine State also offers plenty of theme parks and resorts in the Gold Coast and over 13,000 kilometers.
The Gold Coast is, and Queensland is the city that has most of its most of its population living outside the capital, and that's not because Brisbane is bad. It's because there's really good cities like Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, and like Townsville or Cairns, which offer a really good lifestyle.
Of jaw-dropping beaches. So while many used to only holiday here, that's quickly changing as more people learn of Queensland's exceptional small cities and towns. In fact, it's now the fastest growing state and one of only 2 states where over half the population doesn't live in the capital. And it's not because Brisbane sucks. It's actually often ranked as the most livable city in Australia, as it's not nearly as congested or expensive as Sydney or Melbourne, while still offering legit big city amenities and experience.
Melbourne is in fact my favourite capital city, and my favourite state is Victoria, and you'll pretty much, I think you should find out soon in the video.
Rapid growth, especially with the Olympics coming in 2032. But while Queensland's economy is the second fastest growing of any state, it still has some catching up to do with the 3rd lowest median household income of just $105,000. Because of this, and the fact that the housing market is booming with a median home cost of $788 grand, the Sunshine State has the highest poverty rate at 13.5%. Number 5, Tasmania. Tasmania feels nothing like the rest of Australia.
Tasmania's basically like and like green Antarctica. Like it has one season and that is winter. It's like 10 degrees, it snows a lot, and it's really cold. But it has the cleanest air on the planet, and Hobart, the capital city, is basically just a little town spread into suburbs that no one basically lives in. But it's one of the best states and a tourist attraction because of the beautiful landscapes and places to visit and a lot of farms. And the native animal, Tasmanian devil, is really dangerous. Basically the kangaroo of this place.
And that's because it isn't. An island located around 200 kilometers south of the mainland, the smallest state by both size and population, is home to so many otherworldly and unique landscapes and species not found anywhere else. Not to mention, it rarely ever gets hot and has the cleanest air on Earth. But not only is
I mentioned that, and not only that it has the cleanest air on the planet, it has the cleanest landscape. By that I mean there's no littering, literally no people littering. It's just clean, pure nature. And it's the least urban state. So you won't find a farm, or you will, but you won't find houses, that much houses. There's probably 70 houses in the whole state, and more people just live on farms, or just live on hotels or.
An adventurous paradise with places like Cradle Mountain, Mount Field, and the Bay of Fires all being a short drive from pretty much anywhere on the island. It's also home to so many delightful small towns with some of the friendliest people you will ever meet. And the capital, Hobart, punches well above its weight with tons of history and beautiful architecture, great restaurants, bars, and cafes, and Mona, one of the best museums in the country. Sure, there's little in terms of bustling city life, but if you're looking to slow down
and Mona is the top-rated, best, and the most unique museum in the whole southern hemisphere. Maybe just the third, because some South American and some African museums might be there. I'm not sure. But as far as my knowledge, it goes first.
While being surrounded by unspoiled nature, Tasmania is perfect. Well, if you're retired or work online. Because while the economy is currently the fastest growing, the median household income is still the lowest at just $89,600. And the unemployment rate is 4.3%. At least the cost of living isn't too bad, with a median home price of $691 grand, plenty of cheap high-quality produce, and low energy bills due to most of the island running on hydroelectricity. Number 4. New South Wales.
New South Wales is basically just houses and cities. There's Albury in Sydney, Newcastle, the biggest city outside, if it's a capital, the biggest city that's not a capital. The biggest city is Sydney, and the capital of New South Wales, and has the famous Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Recently there's been a crash on there which kind of damaged the bridge, we don't like, and had this crazy fireworks scene for the New Year's. So anyone looking to see New Year's fireworks in any part of the world, make sure you fly to Sydney to see it, because it is the coolest fireworks out of the bridge, under the bridge, coming and splashing the water. Really cool.
Populated state. Home to Sydney, the most populated city. But while Sydney's big city amenities, multiculturalism,
Sydney is basically a copyright of Los Angeles, because it is the same thing, same population, 5 million and 5 million, and it is a really big city, but has a lot of crime and traffic.
Quality of life and beautiful beaches and harbors speak for themselves. This great state is so much more than just its capital. New South Wales spans over 800,000 square kilometers and is packed with 18 diverse bioregions, ranging from sandy deserts to lush rainforests, rugged mountains, rolling hills, grasslands, rivers, and coast. Yeah, did you know this, and this are all within a 2-hour drive of Sydney? And if both big city life and serene scenery aren't your jam, there's also no shortage of incredible mountain or beach towns, as well as one of the best small cities in Newcastle. As a whole, New South Wales is likely the most balanced province and truly offers something for every type of lifestyle. Then why the heck is it only number 4? Well, because it's bloody expensive, with the highest median home cost of $1.22 million. Now, to be fair, Sydney does have an excellent and diverse economy, so wages across the state aren't bad, with a median household income of $114 grand and the lowest unemployment rate of just 2.9%. But living in Sydney also means terrible traffic, everywhere being crowded, and some of the worst nightlife for a major city. Number 3.
As I was saying in my, I was saying, Sydney's, competitor, my favourite city and my favourite state, Victoria and Melbourne. It's basically Sydney, but Sydney offers beautiful, trees and city life. Melbourne's basically just city and always raining, which makes the city kind of green, but there's not that much stuff to be green. There's only a few trees. But as a really big city, it has so much place and really good nightlife, but Sydney doesn't. And has the best coffee and really fashionable in Australia.
The Australian Capital Territory, covering less than 24...
What? I don't get it. The ACT, where the Parliament House is the capital, it's basically just built to be the capital. It's just built to have the Parliament House. That's all it is. I mean, this is this is my explanation of ACT. So probably the whole state, this is the state. This is the state. The TV is the state. And let's say this is going to be forest. This whole is a city. So the city, this is a part of the city, then forest here, then one of the city, then forest here, then this city, and then the middle, Parliament House. So there's forest between the city, as you can see, so much forest there. And it's a really small city. I don't understand. It's the boringest city in the world. But the only reason it is first is because good healthcare, good education, good median household, blah, blah, blah. Which I mean, as a kid, those really don't matter to you. And I mean, who cares if that median, it's really expensive Sydney. Kids, as a kid, I think the best state should be Victoria or Queensland. Not I mean, I kind of agree with the NT one though.
Square kilometers, and consisting of just Canberra, its suburbs, and Namadgi National Park, it's no surprise that many Australians never even think of visiting the place. And that's honestly a shame, because sure, Canberra isn't exactly the most exciting city, seeing as it was entirely planned with the sole purpose of serving as Australia's capital, but it's still one of the most livable cities in the world. With the second lowest crime and unemployment rate in the country, the highest median household income at $150 grand, and by far the lowest poverty rate of just 5.4%, Canberrans have very little to worry about. Especially since they're close to so many gorgeous mountains with the beautiful Molonglo River running right through town. But while the ACT checks all the statistical boxes, a lot of the city just feels empty with nothing to do if you don't know any locals. The CBD is mostly fields, office buildings, and roundabouts, and while there are walkable areas with shops and restaurants, such as Braddon, Canberra feels a lot more like a collection of spread out suburbs with a few town centers than an actual city. Although, since it is the capital, there are a ton of excellent museums, galleries, and gardens. But a fair warning, Canberra is one of the few Australian cities which gets a true 4 seasons, meaning the winters actually get cold. Number 2, Victoria. When you think of
Victoria is my favorite city. I mean state, and Melbourne is my favorite city. That's mainly because it's a really big city. If you go on YouTube and you see big exploding pumpkin on Amazon, that is so cool, and they bought it. And next thing you know, you go in the dollar store, and you find the big exploding pumpkin that you were looking for, because it has everything you need. It technically has the whole world in it. So thank you for watching.
Victoria,
I mean, it's not ended yet, but Victoria deserves to be too.
You only think of Melbourne, aka the true cultural capital of Australia with the best coffee on earth. Seriously, prove me wrong. But while it's nearly impossible to get bored in Melbourne with its outstanding music and art scene and so many bustling alleyways filled with trendy bars, restaurants, clubs, and cafes, the Garden State is also so much more than just a hipster haven. From skiing in Falls Creek to the penguins of Phillip Island to the stunning ridges of Grampians National Park and cascading waterfalls and rainforests of Yarra Ranges and Otway National Parks, Victoria may only account for 3% of Australia.
It has the biggest water source and the biggest river. And what we drink on in WA, which is like 7 billion kilometers away, the Murray River. Every one of states drink from the Murray River, the biggest river in Australia, which is located in Victoria and a bit in New South Wales.
En masse, but there is no shortage of sensational scenery. Not to mention, it's by far the safest state and home to the Great Ocean Road, the most beautiful drive in the country. But 75% of Victoria does live in Melbourne for a reason. With a stellar job market, world-renowned universities, tons of history, a hip and accepting culture, an excellent public transit, nightlife, and infrastructure, it makes sense that Victoria's capital is growing faster than Sydney and will likely eclipse its population by 2050. Especially since it's cheaper. Although it is still pretty darn expensive, with the statewide median home price being $966 grand. Oh, and did I mention that Melbourne can get 4 seasons in 1 hour? Yeah, one time the temperature dropped.
One time, like when I was in Melbourne, I was like walking around and then it was sunny, and then I was walking around and like a minute later it was raining, and a minute later it was snowing. And a minute later, I built a snowman, and a minute later, it was sunny again, and a minute later, it was snowing again. Like, it was so weird.
Degrees Celsius in 3 minutes. Now, before we get to number 1, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and let me know what you think the best state or territory
Number
is.
1 appears to be my state, WA.
Why? But without further ado, number 1, Western Australia.
Yes, that's where I live. The only problem with this is like, yeah, I know it has beautiful beaches, beautiful everything, really good. It's just boring. I mean, if like when you come as a tourist, it's really good. Like when a few years of living here, when you visit like the zoo, the aquarium, all the places to visit, the go-kart thing, National Boat Museum, like all the good shopping centres. It's basically just a boring city where you just have to live and go to school and go to work and stuff. But there's like still a lot of things to do, but like, to be honest, as someone like that, in your local area, if you live in a suburb, there's basically nothing to do. If you go in a city, there's just restaurants and stuff, really good thingies, but I mean, it's just boring when you see everything. Like when you see the zoo and the aquarium and the banana and the la 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 and the blah 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 blah, you're basically just bored in your house sitting doing nothing. But like there's stuff you can do, like go to the beach, play volleyball, play basketball. Like one of the, not to mention the state with the most basketball courts.
Always need better. But Australia's largest state by total area, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the country, is also the best. Surrounded by 21,000 square kilometers of captivating coast, Western Australia is home to so much enchanting, untouched wilderness. But the best thing about living here is that it's still incredibly affordable, with a median home value of just 630 grand, while also having the second.
I mean, in my opinion, it is cheap. But I don't know why people won't buy good, cheap cars. Like, for example, if you go out, it's not like you'll see BMWs, it's like old Toyotas. I don't know why people buy old cars so much. Like, please buy new cars. It's like filled with old cars.
Median household income of 116 grand. Now, this is mainly due to an abundance of mining jobs, which aren't necessarily the most stable. But Perth's job market is growing and diversifying too. And speaking of Perth, it's likely the most most underrated capital with a hit music and art scene in Fremantle, excellent suburbs and beaches, solid public transit, above average nightlife and restaurants, and a relaxed, stress-free lifestyle. Outside of the state's extreme isolation, with Perth actually being the most isolated.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it so much, guys. Have a nice day. Thank you so much for watching the Brady fans. I appreciate all your support. Hope you have a nice day. See you
Along
later.
the coast.